cloud. Well, where have we found ourselves? Looks like the two most creative, most handsome, and only people on this podcast have made it to the championship game.
I
Welcome
don't
to
think
week
anyone's gonna want
17, Commish.
to. I don't think anyone wants to watch this. Just me and you're gonna watch it later on because everyone's kind of over already. But
This
we told them
this
we'd
is
do it, so why not?
this is something I want to remember forever and always. The year that we started this was the year that we both made it. We were honored by the fantasy gods for our contributions to the league,
Mhm.
and by honoring the integrity of the draft pick trading, we made it here.
Well, we almost broke the league with
We
our trap. With
almost broke.
we almost broke it when we did that. So at least you traded a fourth round pick for your guys, right?
I did, but at that point, like Cousins won't be there in the fourth round next year. That's like what
Yeah.
my mindset was. Like trade kind of an even deal for the type of player that you're getting in return. And that made sense to me. It's just like, oh yeah, if I had a QB1 and then Cousins in the fourth, like I feel good about that, you know?
That's what I did with Carr. I traded Carr and a fourth for Brady, and Carr's dead now. So it's I needed it. So there you go.
I wonder if his tenure in Oakland is done. We can do some off-season chat on stuff like that. But
Yeah.
let's pull this up. Let's dive in and see how we got here, Nima. What as I'm pulling this up, what are your thoughts right now? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that, the teams that made the big trades kind of didn't work out the way they wanted it. So I'm curious, in the future, how it's going to affect, draft pick trading and stuff like that. Because, I mean, just for example, I know Dak was the favorite. That's Phil and Armin's team to kind of take this whole thing because their roster was so stacked.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys they traded for was Jonathan Taylor and Devontae Adams, and Taylor got injured and hurt, and Adams fell apart because Carr fell apart.
Sure.
So they really didn't get much out of those two guys with the pick, and they kind of didn't get there. So it's a tough proposition. I mean, at least someone like at least Devin and David, who are playing for the third place prize, are can still kind of get something out of it with that with their trading the picks. But
Sure.
I don't think that's going to be as prevalent next year, honestly, personally.
I think it was trial by fire. I think you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. People learned by, their actions, and it's just like, hey, let's do this and see what sticks. But as you just alluded to, there's no certainty when it comes to fucking fantasy football.
Oh,
And it doesn't matter how many guaranteed touches, it doesn't matter how many times a quarterback throws a ball, they tweak their ankle and all of a sudden there's this domino effect. Like I look back at, what if I would have made that trade for Tua for Lamar
yeah.
Jackson many, many weeks ago? And I'm like, well, would I still be in this position? And now I'd be completely up against it. I
Hmm.
I would be scrambling and in trouble. So that's why I think on the last one I said, I'm not willing to trade away certainty for next year for uncertainty this year. And
Hmm.
so I mean, looking at what happened in the playoffs and kind of the battles and the matches that were going on. I mean, it's been it's been like a rough go. I mean, there were teams that probably should have bid in that didn't make it, and now someone like Devin is looking at it just like, was this worth it?
Well, he almost traded for Chase too, and would have
And
traded
his
two
second round
picks.
pick,
Well, it would have first and a second, and then it was like, well, Chase wouldn't have made a difference for him either. So, like, that would have been an utter disaster. So at least he didn't do that.
it's true.
Um, I think, I think honestly, um, pickups are more important. Making a good solid pickup, off the waiver wire that people didn't see coming or something like that. I think that's more of slam dunk home run kind of thing than trading a pick and potentially, giving up next year for something that's not certain. Because if a pick up, you falls apart, you drop them, it is what it is. But when you're trading picks, you kind of feel almost like you got to play this guy, you got to stick with it, you got to go with it, you got to go for it. It changes your kind of whole dynamic of the team.
Right.
So,
and
food for thought.
And from my perspective, there are spots in the draft that like I'm willing and I'm unwilling to part with. Like to me, a 7, 8, 9 pick in our league is more valuable than a 4, 5 because that's where the embedded value is, right? That's where the people come out of the woodwork that you shoot your shot based off of the research that you've done, and that's where I feel you can propel yourself into a playoff contending team. And 4, 5, 6 kind of formulaic. It's not as similar to 1, 2, 3 in many respects, but now we have a team, we've got Jordan's team next year who is utterly loaded in terms of the first and like the rounds 1 through 3. And now becomes an instant competitor every single week based off of the fact that not only is he going to dictate how the entire draft goes for everyone else, but he is going to load up his team in a way that feels impossible to overcome. So everyone's going to be overthinking all their picks at like once his first round is done. They're gonna be like, oh shit, like he took 2 QBs. I gotta reach now. I gotta go for some guy that I don't really want. Or it's like, oh man, he took 2 premium running backs and Patrick Mahomes. Oh my God, like I gotta do something. And that to me is kind of the brilliance, the subtle genius of what happened, as much chaos as it caused, because next year's gonna look entirely different.
Yeah, it's gonna change everything. It's gonna be based on Jordan and Wong's strategy about how it's gonna look. So
the blind leading the deaf at that point.
Well, yeah, I mean, Wong was the only one that traded at first and made the playoffs. He fell ass backwards when he got there. I think Posh's team was better. Got kind of screwed over with different stuff, but Jose's team was right there too, but it kind of fell apart at the end.
This never underestimate how much this hurts.
Oh yeah,
barely being on the outside looking in, and then knowing that you would have won any matchup.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough proposition. I mean, he lost 2 of this week though, so who knows? But
it's true.
So we'll get through that. I mean, let's get to our. Why don't we start with the Devin and David matchup, and then we'll finish with our matchup because I'm sure no one wants to hear about us.
Nobody does. We will give a brief overrun. I will tell everyone this though. There are few better feelings in the world than securing the championship in this league. In terms of just like, God, it was worth it this year. I did it. And then you have secured funds and you could take whatever risks you want. But like now that you're here, like I just want to win. Like I just flat out, I'm like, I need this.
And considering like both of our teams are in shambles, like I mean, we're both of us are going to start a waiver wire quarterback.
So many Q tags.
I mean, I lost Derrick Henry. Doesn't exist. But anyway, let's talk about these guys. I mean,
okay.
Devin limped into the playoffs, so it doesn't surprise me that he wasn't able to put up the points. David kind of had a rabbit's foot up his ass a lot of the time. And I was nervous going into the matchup with him, but
better lucky than good.
Effort. But solid effort.
It's fortunate that the Raiders kind of fell apart when they did, and because if you got midseason Josh Jacobs, you'd probably feel like there's nothing you could do to win this matchup. Even Justin Fields a couple of weeks ago, and this is where not a lot of people recognize the difficulty of closing out the season now, because I remember, 5, 6, 7 years ago where these players, whether or not they were playing for something, they'd still play in the game. They'd still be there. But now it's injury management, load management, playoff management. It's all these different things. And then you kind of have to tease out who you believe is going to be the person to step up in these weeks. This is why nobody goes until week 18, because, week 18 is going to be a shit show. And we don't have the roster space to hang on to people for that long in this format. And so this is where, like, these week of waiver pickups to me is just like, this is crucial stuff.
You got to watch almost the NFL standings as much as our own standings, because you got to see which teams and stuff are going to be still playing and still caring. So I had this conversation with Pasha and Jose when they're like, look, Dak's going to run away with the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, but he's got Jonathan Taylor on a bad team. He's got Devonta Adams on a bad team. These guys may not play. And he made trades for him. And, there's a couple other guys on his team too that, you got to watch out and see who's actually going to play at these last few weeks, because, you might have someone like, look, Jalen Hurts, if he was probably like they were really playing for something, he'd probably play the last couple of weeks.
Right.
But they don't really need him. So he sits. So my guy who's been the most consistent the whole year, I got to, start a guy with a mustache instead. So
hey, the stash played last week. I'll tell you that much.
He did play last week. That was a nice little boost right there. But yeah, it's kind of managing all of that. It's managing all of that, looking and see who's going to play. That's why the teams and the players are so important. Sorry, my wife's trying to call me. She doesn't know that I'm busy.
Doesn't she know that there are important things?
These are more important things to do. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, all that's really important. So like with these two guys, I mean, Devin waited all season for Watson, and then it took a shit, you know. And I had Watson all last year, and I dropped him.
Yeah,
and he never played for me, of course. So like it's sitting on these guys and waiting, and then seeing what you get kind of screwed Devin over with that, because he was waiting all that and he got nothing out of Watson. And right. Josh Allen came back down to earth, and his team kind of died. Did take Saquon, traded a pick for Saquon. He was all right. He was solid, but it wasn't enough to take his team to the next level. So,
Yeah. Now, same situation, if you slice it another way, AJ Brown may or may not play. You've got some people who don't have a lot to play for. I know, if I remember correctly, I think last week he benched Mixon.
He did.
And then Sam Darnold outperformed Watson substantially in terms of like fantasy points. And I think I noticed that Devin was swapping back and forth, and, ultimately it didn't matter, but he was probably kicking himself when fucking Darnold rushes one in and then passes for one, and Watson's in the fourth quarter and has 6 points. But you're right, but this week, to me, Watson has more to play for, even though his team doesn't. He needs to show and prove himself. So It's like, hey, he might cut it loose a little bit, even though it's in Washington, it's going to be cold. And then you do, if this team makes it to the next level, like Cam Akers, he's probably playing for a contract. You've got Dobbins, who probably in a similar situation. And these people kind of have stuff to play for. And then you have people with decent matchups. And it's so cruel and it's so fickle in terms of how the fantasy world operates. And I just feel that you almost want to strategize based off of teams that you think are going to be middle of the road at the end of the line, so that that you have your full squad ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, and then you gotta watch out the weather. You mentioned the weather, like cold weather changes a lot of stuff. So then you gotta kind of watch out.
That Saints Browns game.
That's why I started Taysom Hill. I'm like, they're gonna have to run the ball. The Dalton can't throw. So you gotta take that into account too, which was not really a thing earlier in the year. So weather, standings, what they're playing for, divisional match, all that stuff, it becomes a whole different thing kind of the last 4 or 5 weeks. So you kind of got to recalibrate at the end.
Sure.
And get lucky.
It's true. And this is also another subtle thing about our league, is that I pretty much always hold on to 2 defenses. I mean, it's just the way that I operate in this league. And now, if you had San Francisco going next week, you're like this weekend, you're like, I might get 50, 60 points out of these guys. Anything could happen against this Vegas team that they're just on they don't know what's going on in their organization and with their future. And there's no way that their heads are going to be in this game. And I would just be just chomping at the bit for this
Yeah.
because Stidham's playing and all their weapons are basically neutralized. So it's, there's so many different ways that you can kind of go about it in this particular matchup. If, I mean, honestly, I know that the points are pretty tight, but like I lean toward my pick would be Devin's team to take this one. I just think that the players have a little bit more to play for, even though you heard it here first. I'm saying that San Francisco puts a 50 burger of points and keeps Gridiron in this matchup from start to finish.
And a team like the Bears, who the Texans won last week, so the Texans and the Bears are going for the number one pick, so both probably want to lose. So maybe they pull Fields or, this or that. So it's just a lot to kind of take in. But I'm with you. Fields kind of carried David along the way here, throwing a lot of big games up to kind of keep him going. It was between Fields and Josh Jacobs really going to, at some point he was getting 100 points a week from the two guys. It's crazy.
It's a nice feeling.
That kind of took him on, and so I mean, I think Devin's team has not put up points in a while. It just, if you look at his points, it just hasn't been there. David's put up points pretty consistently. So I lean towards David because he's just been putting up points, but I think it can go either way, but I'd probably lean towards David.
There you go. Split decision there. So the final matchup, which ends up being the least favorite of everyone in the group, is me versus Nima. And so many question marks here. Like we simply don't know. And I know that we'll probably each vote for our team to win. What I would say is that, what I think it's going to come down to? I know you probably subtly think this, like you wish that CeeDee Lamb had a little bit better situation to be playing for and not playing on Thursday night. I hate when early games go off and it's a crucial player. And, if he puts up 11 points, you're kind of like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Like you automatically feel up against it with that Thursday game. But my argument, and I think the real, I mean, you have a comparable, replacement here for Minshew. New Orleans might be tough, but I think it's going to come down to Waddle and Tyreek Hill and who has the bigger week, to be honest.
Literally, I was going to say our matchup's going to come down to Teddy Bridgewater, of who he wants to throw the ball to, because it's it's a wild card, and whoever he throws the ball, they need to win, so that's good. But whoever he throws the ball to will probably have the advantage here, which is wild. So, I mean, I'm at a point, I'm starting 2 Bucs running backs. So that's a lot of fun because I lost Derrick Henry too. So not only that, but I want everyone to take a look at Strategy 101 in case you're wondering how someone like Nima gets here pretty consistently and going into, he understood that my needs were at the quarterback position. And he not only did that, but he also took probably the next best defense with the waiver pickups. So he picks up Mike White, New York, and Jacksonville. That's his bench right now. Okay. And yeah, he's made some moves since then, but that's the mindset of a champion right there. That absolutely is just like, I had $0. And so I couldn't get Mike White if you put a bid in. And so that's literally all I've got. So I got pretty lucky. I went for Bridgewater first. And in anticipation of, Tua he hadn't even been ruled out at that point. And so I actually don't even know if he is ruled out yet. I know that Bridgewater's points projection went up, but look at this. Like that is just diabolical. And kudos to you, sir. That's very well played. Yeah, the $8 I had left, I've been hanging on to, and it felt like I was like, like fucking, a baller in a club with bottle service, just throwing money out there. I didn't really care, and I'm just like, I'm gonna pick these guys up, and I wish I could have picked up more, but I needed to. I couldn't with the injuries to Hurts and Henry. I had to kind of like balance it out. Otherwise, I would have more people probably. But anyways, it was definitely.
This was the only notification I think I got before you, which was that Henry was probably doubtful, and I have no intention, just full transparency, I have no intention of starting Haskins tonight. But it's the monopoly effect of just taking away your competitor's options. It's just like in blackjack. Like, I don't have to win as long as you are losing. And
Yeah.
if I'm limiting your options and I'm forcing you to dig deeper into like justifications and stretching yourself on different pickups, that I'm winning in that regard. So, hey, Henry's out, pick up Haskins. And
Yeah.
hey, he needs a quarterback. I'm going to take the best freaking quarterback available. And knowing that these two defenses have great matchups, screw him too. That's brilliant.
Well,
Love it.
I had Denver's defense, and then Denver's defense took a shit. And I'm like, all right, that team's just cursed. So I got rid of that. I figured they're playing KC this week.
They did.
So
they did their best to lose it for you.
Man, could you imagine if I needed just like 10 points out of them, and I would have done that to me in the semifinals? I would have fucking lost my shit. But
I had a very similar situation. If I would have needed this, that would have. I was just like, oh, dude, he's gonna get points. There's no way. If I'm down by 5 points going into this, just like, oh yeah, we're good. All of a sudden, this is why you never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, as you said, I think our matchups is basically between Tyreek Hill, and if one of those guys blows up, it changes the dynamic of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You're down at QB, I'm down at QB, so that kind of like evens itself out. I think our defenses are pretty solid either way, so it's going to come down to some stupid matchup, or maybe one of our Bridgewater blows up, or whoever I start blows up.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's interesting.
The nice thing is that on New Year's Day, we will know who the champion is, and we don't have to wait until Monday. So that'll be nice.
Is that it? Is that true? Is that all morning game? Is there a night game?
Look at this.
It's going to be over in the afternoon?
It's going to be over in the afternoon.
Oh, that's wild.
No night game, and we don't have any Bills or Bengals. So no Monday.
That's wild. All right, interesting. All right, I didn't even think about that. It's gonna be over fast. We're gonna know pretty quickly. So,
oh man, this could be really bad. This is another one of those 50 burgers incoming.
I'm torn. I don't know who to start between him and Devin Jacksonville, but I'm leaning towards the Giants because they're home. But we'll see.
The thing about, and I know you got a boogie. The thing about Jacksonville and Houston is no matter what, that game's always close. And
divisional matchups are always weird. That's why I'm staying away from it for most likely.
Exactly. And that's why, like, personally, I'd probably lean towards the Giants in terms of the start, because they're at home. They got a banged up team that is going through a quarterback carousel. And Houston, all things considered, they haven't been playing poorly.
No.
I took them on the spread last week, and they ended up winning outright. And they're not playing bad football. If you really look at their scores, it's like, this team's kind of in it, and they always play Jacksonville like super tight. And so that could kind of skew in the other direction of like, well, someone's going to make a mistake. There might be a pick six, blah, blah, blah. But to me, I don't even see how Indianapolis is going to put points on the board,
Yeah, the Jeff Saturday at coaching really didn't work out. So we'll see who they bring in next year.
Maybe we fly Coach Wager in for the weekend and see if he can do better.
He's available.
I heard he's available.
Yeah, he's available. Well, it's been a great season, guys. I really appreciate you guys listening to Andy and I, ramble on these podcasts and stuff like that. And it was a pleasure. And may the best man win. And either way, so it was a fun season, and I'm excited for our draft next year. Maybe we do a live podcast from the draft after post-draft right away.
Now we're talking. Now we're absolutely talking. There'll be shenanigans going on. We'll have guest speakers who want to chime in with their 2 cents. It'll be great. Yeah. Thank you all for listening. I know that we just love shooting the shit, and this is not something that's going to stop going into next year. And so, yeah, like you said, hat tip to you, sir, to making it here, and may the best man win.
Exactly, buddy. All right, guys. Good season. Talk to you guys later.
Later, buddies.